Hello, Copic and the Craft Room fans. Michelle Houghton here. We are ready to color up a stamp again. Now, I have done this technique before, but I am in the holiday mood, and so I'm going through a series of different stamps from different companies. This particular one is from Penny Black. They have these gorgeous stamps meant to be colored and stamped with, and so I am doing that with my Copic markers. One of the biggest questions I get about this process, and I'm going to answer it right from the get-go, is what do I do with the stamp at the end? Because now it's got Copic ink on it. You're going to see me do part of the process in the video. I do use my colorless blender mist and paper towel just to get as much of the ink off as possible. The other thing I do, however, other than that, is that I go back and clean the stamp with a stamp cleaner, one that has a little bit of a moisturizer or oil base to it, and that allows the alcohol not to dry the stamp out. So it gives it that added moisture back into the stamp, kind of a conditioning cleanser. So first I'm going to start on those holly leaves, and I've got a G14 and a G17 that I'm using. I'm basing that in G14. And then my G17 is going to go down kind of from the center outward. So I'm leaving the veins a little bit lighter this time. And I'm working from that center vein. I'm not hitting it, but I'm kind of flicking the color outward. If you've seen this before, you know that one of the best parts of this technique is you don't have to do any blending. You just leave the color as is. Obviously, it's drying as we go, but I can do all of the colors at once. So E35 is next on all of the stems, those little branches and stems that are kind of tucked in behind the berries, and the holly leaves are getting E35 and then E29. Other thing you might notice is a few of these, and I am going in on the holly leaves just a little bit to actually accentuate that vein now. So I'm going right down the center, hitting those veins, and then I will come in on those branches just a little bit with E29. What I was going to say is that you'll notice some of these I make bigger jumps with my color combinations. So that value number, the number at the end, I do make some really big jumps, huge contrast changes. But because of this process, it actually works. It kind of blends together. So R20 is going to start the berries, give it that base color. I'm scrubbing off anything the marker happened to pick up off the stamp. R24 is next. Because I've done this recently with this particular group of colors, I know that I've got some residual, and that's why on those light markers in particular, I always scrub off what I pick up off the rubber stamp. R29 is last, just going around the very edge, kind of hitting one bottom corner of each of those berries to keep the highlight, but to add that distinct edge. Again, kind of scrubbing that off. So then I have a mister full of colorless blender, and I give that a spritz and stamp. The next really nice part of this, and this shifted just a little bit on me, but with this type of technique, it doesn't matter too much. I know where to line that paper up, of course. I can hit it with mister again in the areas that didn't stamp and press that down a second time. I can even do it a third if I need to. You can see where the ink is left on the stamp and hit that one last time and transfer that ink over. That's the best part of these stamp platforms. I really do like. I've tried a few of them, and I like both the versions that I've tried, the different brands. I can go through the process exactly the same way again, adding more ink, the two greens, my two earth tones, my two reds. You're going to obviously see me go faster this time because now you've seen the process once. So now I am flying through this process. But again, this is another really quick and easy technique to use Copics with. And you can produce a lot of cards very quickly, very fast, which I love. An image this size would probably normally take me 30 to 40 minutes to color, or maybe not that long, but it's going to take a chunk of time. 30 minutes to an hour for a full card image is not unusual. And that's with a lot of practice and a lot of experimenting ahead of time with colors and stuff. This particular technique, I can usually sit down and make one of these images. Once I've done it once, I can do one of these in 5, maybe 10 minutes, but more likely 5. So there's 2 of them out really fast, back to back. The stamp I missed with a little bit of colorless blender, and I'm dabbing up as much of the ink as I can. I'll go back and clean it with a conditioner, cleaning a stamp cleaner later. And again, that's just adding moisture back into that stamp. So that is how I clean those. They sometimes will have a residual color, just like it does when you have an ink that kind of stains your stamps as well. So then I'm going to turn one of these into a card. I'm not going to do both of them because I eventually do the exact same thing with both of them. So I don't know that you necessarily want to see that entire process. But I've got these 2 card fronts, and I'm going to use craft card bases, keeping it really simple. And I start the process for 2 so that I can eventually have both of them done, at least fairly quickly. And then I can trim those down because I think they're a little bit big. So I get those trimmed down so that they're going to fit onto the card. And I've also rounded the corners. So I'm going to adhere that down, but I also wanted to add a little bit of twine running through the picture. And for me, I hate going over the top of an image, and sometimes that's why I end up struggling a little bit with where to add things, where to add those little details. So what I'm going to do this time is you could use an X-Acto blade, would be more effective. I'm adding 2 slits on either side of the holly leaf, and I'm going to feed the twine up from underneath the card on either side of the holly berry, kind of tucking it in. I'm using my scissors this time. Gratefully, they have a nice sharp point, so I can kind of tuck it in almost like a needle. And then I'm going to feed that up through the front of the card, tie a bow on one side, and then that's pretty much it. I'm about as simple as it comes when it comes to card making. So, but that gives you a sense. The other way, if you had a really small hole punch, you could add 2 little holes on either side of the holly. And that's not going to take away from the image. The other thing I probably would come back and add is either a little sprinkling of red glitter, little 3 dots next to the bow, or even doing glitter on top of the holly berries, or even glossy accents to give them some dimension and shine. For right now, all I'm going to do is some wet adhesive, and I'm going to stick it down on the card. So I'm keeping things really, really simple. But here's another holiday card idea for you, this time by Penny Black. Thank you, Penny Black, for your beautiful stamps. Thanks so much for stopping by today, and I hope you learned a new technique or refreshed your memory on an old one. If you have not had a chance, please like the channel just so you get this in your inbox each week as I produce new videos. And stop by Scrap Weaver, my blog, and find out all of my new classes and ongoings with Copic College as well. Have a happy, colorful week.